Imagine this. You've saved for years for that perfect Royal Caribbean getaway. You're 3 days in, cocktail in hand, when security knocks on your cabin door. Suddenly, you're being escorted off the ship at the next port. No refund, no flight home, and a permanent lifetime ban from the cruise line. It sounds like a nightmare, but for many passengers, it's a reality because they missed one hidden rule. From fire hazards that trigger ship-wide alarms to $1,000 billing errors. Today we are exposing 20 dangerous cruise ship mistakes you need to avoid at all costs. Mistake number 7 is a shocker even for diamond-level cruisers. 1. The minibar trap. That tiny fridge in your cabin isn't a welcome gift. It is a high-stakes financial trap designed to bleed your onboard credit dry. Most cruisers think that because they have a drink package, anything inside the room is fair game. But here is the catch. The minibar is managed by an entirely different department. I once met a couple on an MSC cruise who thought the welcome snacks and sodas were part of their inclusive diamond status. They polished off the waters, the Pringles, and the mini gins every night. On the final morning, they found a $140 restocking and consumption fee on their folio. They spent 3 hours at guest services trying to argue it, but the contract was clear. These charges are often automated and non-refundable. They can eat up your entire shore excursion budget or your specialty dining fund before you even hit the first port. The cruise lines count on you being too relaxed to check the price list tucked away in the desk drawer. On day 1, ask your cabin steward to empty the minibar immediately to prevent accidental charges and create room for your own water and medications. 2. Lighting up on the balcony. Smoking on your balcony is the single fastest way to get kicked off a cruise ship with zero refund. You might think you're being discreet, but you aren't just fighting the wind. You're fighting high-tech sensors and your own neighbors. A passenger on a recent Carnival sailing was caught after a neighbor reported the smell. Security didn't just give a warning. They used shipside cameras to confirm the ember. The passenger was fined $500 on the spot, and then the real nightmare began. They were forced to disembark at the very next port in Cozumel. They had to pay for their own last-minute flight home and lost the remaining 4 days of their vacation. Fire is the #1 danger at sea. A single stray ash can be sucked into the ship's ventilation or land on a lifeboard below, triggering a disaster. Cruise lines have moved to a zero-tolerance policy for unauthorized flames. Even if you're a vapor, don't risk it. The smoke detectors in modern cabins are far more sensitive than the ones in your house. Only use the designated smoking sections on the open decks, and never, ever leave a cigarette or vape unattended in your cabin. 3. The day of sailing flight gamble. Flying into the port city on the morning of your cruise is a multi-thousand-dollar gamble that most passengers eventually lose. You might think a 9 a.m. arrival for a 4 p.m. departure is plenty of time, but the buffer is an illusion. Take the case of a family of 5 sailing out of Miami on NCL. A simple mechanical delay on their flight turned a 2-hour trip into a 6-hour ordeal. By the time they landed and grabbed an Uber, they reached the pier just 15 minutes after the gangway was pulled. They stood on the dock and watched the ship pull away with their luggage already on board. Because they booked the flight themselves and not through the cruise line, the ship had no obligation to wait. Worse yet, most standard travel insurance wouldn't cover a missed departure if your flight connection was considered tight by industry standards. They lost the $6,000 cost of the cruise in a single afternoon. Always arrive at your port city at least 1 full day before embarkation to ensure that delays don't turn your vacation into a dockside disaster. 4. Ignoring the muster drill. The safety muster drill is not a suggestion or a boring formality. It is a legal requirement that can prevent the ship from leaving the dock. Many passengers think they can hide in a bar or stay in their cabin to skip the crowd, but the cruise lines are watching. I was on a Royal Caribbean ship where a small group of passengers decided to hide in a closed lounge to avoid the drill. Security tracked them down via their SeaPass cards. The captain actually came over the ship-wide PA system and announced that the departure was being delayed specifically because of the uncooperative guests in Lounge 5. The entire ship knew exactly who they were when they finally walked out. Beyond the public shaming, there are legal consequences. If you refuse to complete the drill, the cruise line can, and will, deny you boarding. It's a maritime law designed to save lives, and the crew is required to log 100% participation before they can legally sail into international waters. Complete the e-muster on your smartphone app the second you board the ship. Then visit your physical station immediately to get it cleared in under 2 minutes. 5. Drinking the tap water. While cruise ship water is technically safe and highly filtered, drinking exclusively from your cabin tap can lead to a ruined stomach. Most passengers assume water is water, but the mineral content and the desalination process used on ships can be very different from what your body is used to at home. On a budget-friendly 7-day cruise, a passenger decided to save $60 by drinking only from the bathroom tap instead of buying the bottled water package. By day 3, they were dealing with severe bloating and what crew members call traveler's tummy. They spent the next 2 days confined to their cabin, missing a $200 prepaid snorkel excursion because they couldn't be more than 10 feet from a bathroom. It isn't necessarily that the water is dirty, but the high sodium or mineral levels used to treat it can act as a mild laxative for sensitive systems. Dehydration at sea is a serious risk, especially when you're combining sun exposure with alcohol. Use the filtered water stations located in the buffet or bring a reusable bottle with an integrated filter like a Brita to keep your stomach stable. 6. The towel animal misconception. Your cruise cabin is filled with amenities that many passengers mistakenly treat as souvenirs, leading to massive post-cruise bills. People see the plush robes and thick, branded beach towels and think, well, I paid thousands for this suite. Surely this is included. But the truth is, the cruise line keeps a strict inventory of every fabric item in that room. I once saw a woman at disembarkation who was livid because she found an $80 charge on her folio for a robe she had tucked into her suitcase. She thought it was a gift for her diamond status, but the cabin steward had flagged it as missing during the final room sweep. This also applies to those blue or yellow pool towels. If you leave them on a deck chair or a shore excursion bus, you'll be hit with a $25 fee per towel. These charges are processed automatically to the credit card you have on file, and they are notoriously difficult to dispute once you've left the ship. If you love the onboard merchandise, buy a brand new, vacuum-sealed version at the gift shop instead of taking used items from your cabin. 7. Missing the all-aboard time. The most expensive 5 minutes of your life is the gap between the all-aboard time and when the gangway actually lifts. We've all seen the pier runner videos on YouTube, but it's a lot less funny when you are the one standing on the concrete. In Nassau, I watched a couple leisurely walking toward the ship with shopping bags, 5 minutes past the deadline. The ship had already cleared the lines. Because they weren't on a ship-sponsored excursion, the ship didn't have to wait. They were left in the Bahamas with nothing but their passports and the clothes on their backs. They ended up paying over $2,000 for a private boat and last-minute flights just to catch the ship at the next port. Most cruisers don't realize that ship time and local time are often different. If your phone automatically updates to the local time zone, you might think you have an hour left when you are actually 10 minutes late. Always keep your watch set to ship time and plan to be back at the pier at least 1 full hour before the scheduled all-aboard time. 8. Trusting the buffet serving spoons. The buffet is the heartbeat of the ship, but it is also the primary vector for norovirus if you aren't practicing defensive dining. Most passengers think the danger is the food itself, but the real risk is the thousands of hands touching the same serving tongs. I once witnessed a passenger use their bare fingers to grab a slice of bread because the tongs were too far away. Within 48 hours, a code red was declared on that deck, meaning a localized outbreak of a stomach virus. When that happens, the crew has to take over all serving, the salt shakers are removed, and the fun of the buffet vanishes. If you get sick, the ship's doctor will likely quarantine you in your cabin for 24 to 48 hours. That is 2 days of your expensive vacation spent staring at a wall while you listen to everyone else having fun at the pool. Use the hand sanitizer after you have walked through the buffet line and touch the spoons, right before you actually pick up your fork to eat. 9. Overlooking the daily folio. Waiting until the final morning of your cruise to check your bill is a recipe for a stressful, expensive departure. Many cruisers assume the total on the app is correct, but errors happen more often than you think. On a recent sailing, a passenger noticed a $400 charge for arcade credits on their bill. It turns out another guest with a similar room number had been charging to the wrong account all week. Because the passenger checked this on day 4, it was fixed in 10 minutes. However, if they had waited until the final morning, They would have been stuck in a 3-hour line at guest services while their airport shuttle left without them. The final morning is chaos. Everyone is trying to dispute a $10 drink or a mistaken laundry charge. If you don't catch an error while the ship is still in cruise mode, it becomes 10 times harder to get a refund once you are back on land. Spend 30 seconds every night reviewing your charges on the cruise app to catch and correct mistakes before the final day rush. 10. Bringing a power strip with a surge protector. Most passengers don't realize that a standard home power strip is considered a dangerous weapon by cruise ship security. While you need more outlets for your phones and cameras, a surge protector can actually cause a fire on a ship's unique electrical grid. I saw a vlogger get pulled aside at embarkation because his gear bag was flagged. His $40 surge-protected power strip was confiscated, and he was sent to the naughty table to reclaim his bag. He spent the first 4 hours of his cruise in a hot security basement instead of at the sail-away party. Shipboard electricity is floating, meaning it doesn't have the same ground as your house. A surge protector can't handle the way ship power cycles, which leads to overheating and potential electrical fires. Security will find them during the X-ray process every single time. Purchase a cruise-approved, non-surge protected power cube or multi-plug to safely expand your outlets without alerting security. 11. Not putting your phone in airplane mode. The cellular at sea network is the most expensive roaming trap in the world, and it can result in a bill that costs more than the cruise itself. Most passengers think that being near the coast means they are safe on their standard data plan. A teenager on an Alaskan cruise once left his phone on to quickly check Instagram while the ship was in transit. His phone latched onto the ship's satellite signal. By the time the family got home, they had a bill for $2,400 in data roaming charges. The carrier refused to waive it because the satellite roaming warning was technically sent via text, which the teen ignored. Even if you have an international plan, it almost never covers the satellite network used by cruise ships. If your phone isn't in airplane mode, it will constantly search for a signal, burning battery, and potentially thousands of dollars in background data refreshes. Put your phone into airplane mode the moment the ship pulls away from the dock and only use the ship's Wi-Fi if you have a prepaid package. 12. Booking a cabin under the galley or gym. When it comes to a cruise cabin, the cheapest price often comes with a hidden noise tax that can ruin your sleep for the entire week. Most passengers look at the room photos but forget to look at what is directly above their heads. A cruiser once booked a guaranteed interior room at a great price, only to find they were directly under the 24-hour buffet galley. Every night at 3 a.m., they were woken up by the sound of heavy metal carts rolling across the floor and the clinking of thousands of spoons being prepped for breakfast. They spent the entire vacation exhausted and irritable. The same goes for rooms under the jogging track or the fitness center. If you enjoy sleeping past 6 a.m., you do not want to hear the thump-thump of a marathon runner over your pillow. Always consult a deck plan before booking. The sweet spot is a cabin that has other passenger cabins both directly above and directly below it. 13. Using the deck chairs for towel reserving. Chair hogging is the quickest way to turn a relaxing sea day into a high-tension confrontation with your fellow passengers. Many people think that placing a book or a flip-flop on a chair at 7 a.m. gives them ownership for the day, but the crew is starting to fight back. On a crowded sea day, a man reserved for prime poolside loungers with towels and then went to a 2-hour brunch. After 45 minutes of the chairs being empty, the deck staff moved his items to a lost and found bin. When the man returned and found a family sitting in his chairs, a physical altercation nearly broke out. Security was called, and the man was nearly banned from the pool deck for the rest of the trip. Most ships now have a 30-minute rule. If the chair is unoccupied for half an hour, your stuff will be removed. Not only is it rude, but it creates a toxic environment on the deck. If you are leaving the pool area for more than 20 minutes, take your towels with you. It's better to find a new chair later than to lose your belongings. 14. Forgetting to pre-book special dining. Specialty restaurants like Teppanyaki or Chops Grill are not walk-in friendly, and waiting until you board to book is a guaranteed way to miss out. Popular venues often sell out months before the ship even leaves the port. I met a couple celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary who had their hearts set on a specific Italian restaurant for night 5. They waited until they got on the ship to make the reservation. only to find that every single slot between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. was fully booked for the entire week. They ended up eating at the buffet for their anniversary dinner. The cruise lines give priority to those who book through the online planner. By the time the general public boards on day one, only the leftover times, like 5 p.m. or 9:30 p.m., are available. Log into your cruise planner 60 to 90 days before you're sailing to secure your preferred dining times, especially for formal nights or celebrations. 15. Not buying travel insurance. Thinking you don't need travel insurance because you're healthy is a mistake that can lead to total financial ruin. Most passengers don't realize that their standard health insurance or even their premium credit card coverage often stops at the shoreline. Consider the case of a 50-year-old passenger who had an unexpected heart complication near the coast of Belize. The ship's medical center was excellent, but they weren't equipped for major surgery. A medevac is the extreme case, but insurance also covers simple things like the ship missing a port or you getting a flu that prevents you from traveling. Without it, you are 100% liable for every cent of a lost trip or a medical bill. Purchase an independent travel insurance policy that specifically includes emergency medical evacuation and trip interruption to protect your savings. 16. Wearing new shoes on port days. Wearing unproven footwear on a heavy walking day is a physical mistake that will end your excursion before you even see the sights. Many cruisers buy cute, new sandals or walking shoes specifically for the trip, but new is synonymous with blisters. A woman on a Mediterranean cruise wore brand new designer leather sandals for a 10-hour walking tour of Rome. By mid-morning, her heels were bleeding, and she was in so much pain she couldn't continue. She ended up sitting in a tourist cafe for 5 hours while the rest of her group explored the Colosseum and the Vatican. She paid $300 for a tour she didn't get to see. On a port day, you can easily walk 10,000 to 15,000 steps on cobblestones or uneven pavement. If your shoes aren't broken in, the friction will ruin your day in less than an hour. Only wear shoes that you have already walked at least 5 miles and back home, and always pack a blister kit in your day bag just in case. 17. Bringing legal CBD or marijuana. The biggest legal trap for modern cruisers is assuming that because CBD or marijuana is legal in their home state, it is legal on a cruise ship. Cruise ships operate under federal and maritime law, and they have a zero-tolerance policy that overrides any state-level legalization. I witnessed a passenger get flagged by a security dog during embarkation because she had CBD gummies in her carry-on for sleep anxiety. Even though she had a receipt from a legal dispensary, the gummies were confiscated, and she was detained by local police. She was eventually allowed to board, but she was flagged as a high-risk passenger and had her cabin searched multiple times during the cruise. In some international ports, like those in the Caribbean or Asia, having these items can lead to actual jail time in a foreign prison. The cruise lines will not help you if you are arrested for drug possession in a port of call. Leave all cannabis-derived products, including CBD oils and gummies, at home. It is not worth the risk of an international drug trafficking charge. 18. Booking third-party shore excursions with tight windows. Choosing a non-ship-sponsored excursion to save $20 is a dangerous game that could result in the ship leaving you behind. The most important rule of cruising is this: if a ship tour is late, the ship waits. If a private tour is late, the ship sails. In Cozumel, a group of 6 friends booked a cheap Jeep tour through a local website. On the way back to the pier, the Jeep had a mechanical failure 30 miles away. They didn't have a way to contact the ship. They arrived at the dock 30 minutes after the all-aboard time and had to watch the ship disappear over the horizon. They had to pay for a hotel, new flights, and emergency passports because theirs were locked in their cabin safes on the ship. What started as a $20 saving turned into a $3,000 disaster. If you book a third-party excursion, ensure the itinerary is scheduled to return to the pier at least 2.5 hours before the ship's departure. 19. Forgetting magnetic hooks for the cabin. Underestimating the lack of storage in a standard cabin will lead to a disorganized, stressful living space for your entire vacation. Cruise cabins are marvels of engineering, but they have almost zero floor space and very few hooks for wet gear. I once saw a family of 4 sharing a standard balcony room. By day 3, the room was an explosion of wet swimsuits, lanyards, hats, and daily planners. They couldn't find their sea pass cards or their sunglasses because everything was buried under a pile of laundry. This chaos leads to arguments and wasted time every time you try to leave the room. Most passengers don't realize that the walls and ceilings of almost every cruise cabin are made of solid metal. You can transform the entire room if you come prepared with the right tools. Bring a pack of 25 lb rated magnetic hooks to hang your hats, bags, and wet swimsuits on the walls, keeping your limited counter space completely clear. 20. Tipping only at the end. Waiting until the final night to tip your crew is a missed opportunity for VIP service that would have made your cruise 10 times better. Most passengers think of tipping as a reward for work done, but on a ship, a pre-tip is an investment in your experience. I always tip my room steward $20 on the very first afternoon and introduce myself. Because of that $20, I never have to ask for extra ice. My room is always cleaned first, and I often find extra treats or towel animals that my neighbors don't get. My neighbor once tipped $100 on the final night, but complained all week that he never saw his steward. The crew works incredibly hard, and showing them that you appreciate them early on sets the tone for the entire week. It makes you a person instead of just a room number to them. Give your cabin steward and your favorite bartender a small tip on day 1 or day 2 to ensure you receive attentive, VIP-style service for the rest of the week. Cruising is the best way to see the world, but only if you know the rules of the sea. Avoiding these 20 dangerous mistakes will save you thousands of dollars and ensure your vacation is a dream, not a disaster. If you found these tips helpful, hit that like button and subscribe to Cruise Pro so you never miss an update. Comment below, what is the biggest mistake you have ever made on a ship? And for more do's and don'ts, you need to watch 12 Things Banned on Cruise Ships in 2025 right here.